So in the last video, we had a look at some of the ways that I like to edit and some of the tools that you're going to see me using. But in this video, what I thought we would do is talk about coming up with a game plan. So whenever you're doing vocal production, I think it's pretty imperative to have a sequence of steps that you follow or an order of things that you like to work. Because if you don't, you're quickly going to find that you're going to be just falling down a rabbit hole and you're going to be just hopping all over the place and you won't even be able to remember what you've worked on, what you haven't, what's been tuned, what's been aligned. So I think having a game plan of some sort is a really good idea. And even better is having a sequence of steps that you can follow that you kind of turn into a routine so that when you're going through your vocals and you're working through them on future projects, that you develop a sequence of steps that you follow and you always know where you are. Now, this is really up to you in terms of how you want to work. But what I like to do is I like to do things like using colors or just a certain general workflow that I always do in my sessions. So for instance, you can see that I've color coded these vocals here so that when I'm working on them, I can quickly tell that I'm working on them in pairs. But one thing that I might consider doing is I could say, well, I want this track to be this color, and I want that to represent the final color of the work that I'm doing. But in the meantime, before I do anything, I want to make these vocals a different color. So for example, I could change the color altogether like this, and then I would know that I have to do work because the colors on the track don't match the color over here. But in this case, I'm not going to do that because we're going to work through in a step of sequences that I generally like to work with. But it could be something like where maybe when you're done your work that you put a little underscore underneath it or something like that. Or perhaps it's before you've started, you have an underscore at the very beginning. So that leads you to know that you have to do work. And then when you're done all the work, maybe you want to go back and take away that underscore. And that's just a way to keep yourself visually organized so that you can work through all these vocal tracks and make sense of everything. Okay, so the next thing I want to do here is let's have a look at what we're working with, and I'm going to kind of determine a step sequence of the way I want to work on this project. Now, as I stated a couple videos back, I've made some mental notes on some things that I need to do here. So for example, I know that the lead chorus is going to give me quite a hard time because I've got so many different takes that I've got to comp with. And I need to find something that's a nice balance between finding good tone, good timbre, good performance, and decent pitch. And then I know that those vocals have to work against all of our stacks. So I know that that's going to take a little bit of time. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my vocal lead verse 1 and verse 2. I'm going to comp together the best take. I'm going to do some manual editing. And then I know that I need to do a little bit of editing on these ones so that they work and they match everything a little bit better because we had some timing differences over here. Now I know when it comes to my vocal stacks over here that they're in pretty good shape, but I know that I've got a problem when it comes time to deal with the end here. So I'm going to have to make a mental note to myself that before I go ahead and time align all of these, that I have to have one master reference. And I have to have all of these pitch corrected as well before I do any time aligning. Now for that, I'm most likely going to use Vocaline because I'll just run these into Melodyne. Melodyne is an integrated process via ARA in Studio One, so it's very easy to work with. So what I'll probably do is, like I usually do, I'm going to comp together the best take I can from all of these individual ones, and then I will consolidate that into a new event. And then I'm going to go ahead, pitch correct those, and then I'm going to time align as needed. Now, I'll be listening to different tracks against each other to make sure that I'm following the right pocket and that everything works. Now, these sections, I'm going to kind of play it by ear, but I have a feeling for this section over here that I'm most likely going to use Revoice Pro. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll probably use Melodyne and maybe Melodyne in conjunction with another tuning plugin to get my tuning where I need it to be. And then I'm going to bring in this vocal take over here into Revoice Pro. And then I'm going to time and pitch align both of these takes to this one in one shot instantaneously. And then I'm going to bring those back in. And anywhere I can save my time by doing things like that and using some of these tools, I'm going to go ahead and do so. Now for these type of things, it's going to be the same thing. Anything where they're playing in unison and I need to make sure that they work together, most likely going to trim these audio regions up so that they're nice and tight, get rid of all this excess clutter over here, I'll be pitch correcting, and then I'll be choosing one as a master reference. I'll be listening to that against all of these stacks and against my lead vocal. And then I'm going to be going ahead and choosing that one as the guide, and I'm going to be time aligning the others. Now, I like to do as much manual editing as I can. And if I have the budget and time and I'm working on an album or a record, I'll definitely turn to manual editing before I do any time compression or expansion. But when you're working with the budgets that we have with today's industry, turning to tools like Melodyne, Revoice Pro, Vocaline, there's nothing wrong with it as long as you don't abuse them and as long as you understand the limits. So I've pretty much got my game plan here. We're going to start by just going through my verses and comping together the best takes, tightening up with a little bit of manual editing, getting these vocal stacks in shape for the chorus. Then I'll probably move down to the haze, tighten these up, and move across all of these. And then lastly, I'm going to have a look at these in sections. And I'll probably work in different sections based on the colors over here. And I'm going to be just, making up my mind as to what tools I want to use on the fly. But the good thing is that I have a general game plan and I know where I need to start. So in the next video, we're going to have a look at comping and editing the lead vocals. And we're going to have a look at some of the tricks that I like to use in terms of manual editing before I move to pitch correction.